Sean McAdam writes for Mass Live that John Henry could learn a lesson from Steve Cohen, owner of the New York Mets. And he's not just talking about the obvious thing, which is he could spend some effing money. It's not that part, which is plain and obvious, and we all know that. But recently at the Mets Fan Fest, fans were clamoring for the team to re-sign Pete Alonso. And they were chanting to re-sign Pete Alonso. And David Stearns, the president of baseball ops, had been booed while he was on stage as he attempted to speak with chants of re-sign Pete. So Cohen gets up there, grabs the microphone and says, listen, everybody, to paraphrase, calm down for a second. And talked about why they weren't going to do it. Why it felt like Pete Alonso was not going to be making a return to the New York Mets. Boo! He spoke to them in plain language and said, this is why it's not going to happen. And oh, by the way, look at all the effing money we spent. So relax. But he's got credibility with his fans because he has done that.
It was awesome. And he got a positive response, by the way, from the fan base when he laid out exactly why they weren't doing it and did a complete 180 in terms of why, from a fan reaction, why Pete Alonso wasn't there.
Because if you're transparent and you are committed and you've proven that commitment by spending your money, and then you're transparent about what fans don't like, well, then they'll have respect for you.
It's the complete opposite of what happened at Winter Weekend in 2022. After that season, when he was on stage, Chaim Bloom is getting booed crazily. Everyone's going in on him. John Henry just sits there silently. Sam Kennedy will speak on his behalf here and there, and then he looks at his watch, and then all of a sudden it's a news story that goes nuts for a week. But in that moment, John Henry could have taken the mic. He could have done something.
When I look at my watch, it means start the car. Is that what it was?
That's the thing, though. Do you even want to hear from him at this point, or doesn't the spending have to happen first?
No, I want to hear from him. When I tap my foot twice, it means come capture me and run me off stage.
But
this is the stat. This is the stat
words ring hollow unless he actually does what matters, which is spend.
But no, I agree with that. I do agree with that. You're right. I always say, show us with your actions, not your words.
Yes.
It's what I was saying about Robert Kraft and the Patriots in recent months. Don't come out and send us a letter. Don't write a letter to us again. Don't insult our intelligence with that crap. Make changes. And they did. And so you respect that they made changes. But John Henry, on the other hand, has not spoken. This stat kind of blew my mind. And I told you off the air a moment ago what it was. He has not spoken in a question and answer setting in 5 years.
It's almost impossible to believe. So the winter meetings, the fan fest type of thing, that doesn't count apparently, or did he not even really speak at that?
But not a Q&A. Not an opportunity for someone to ask him a hard question. He said, contrast what Steve Cohen did to how Red Sox fans feel about Henry, who has dramatically slashed spending over the last 5 years and, to make matters worse, became something of a recluse. In a few weeks, it will be 5 full years since Henry fielded questions in a press conference setting. He writes, Henry's silence speaks volumes, or at the very least, sends an unmistakable message to the fan base. That message, you're not important. That is McAdam on John Henry.
He's right.
5 years. When they get to spring training, it's been 5 years. And they're just a sad bunch. You guys are pathetic. I don't even want to rip you anymore. You're just sad. What a bunch of losers. Kennedy,
McAdam's 100%
Henry,
right.
Warner.
Yeah.
You guys are a joke. You're going to be a joke in this town for a long time. Do you think you come back from this? From the last 5 years?
There's only one way to do it.
You've got 4 World Series rings, and you're dirt in this city. Do you know how hard that is to do?
It's crazy.
You know how hard you have to be? You know how badly you have to do it to be that guy? Oh, man, I almost feel bad for you because you're so pathetic.
Well, don't go that far just yet. Because that's the message they're sending, is that you don't matter. You're not deserving of an explanation as to why things are going the way they're going.
They're not deserving of our attention. They're not deserving of our money. They're not deserving of anything from any of you. You don't owe the Red Sox. As a lifelong fan, if you are one, you owe them nothing. And it doesn't make you a bad fan. You don't owe them a damn thing. You don't owe them a Nessun 360 subscription, or you don't owe them to pay the extra $20 on your Comcast bill now to get those games this spring and summer. You don't owe them any of it. You don't owe them your eyeballs, your attention, your heart, your emotion, none of it. They're just a sad group. Sad. 5 calendar years since an owner was willing to step up to a microphone and speak about his team. And as Sean McAdam points out, the first 10 years of Red Sox ownership for this guy, for John Henry, he'd talk about anything. He'd talk about baseball. He'd talk about ballpark improvements. Talk about the New York Yankees. He'd talk about everything.
Sure.
He was accessible. He was passionate. He was engaged. He was present. He's now an absentee owner. Doesn't give a flip. You're just a piece of a portfolio.
It's pathetic, really. And don't you think part of the reason he hasn't done it is because he feels like every time he does, he gets into trouble? Yeah. Or he says something he wishes he hadn't said? Which, when you're the owner, you own the team, man. Like, you're the boss. You run the thing. So, because you've become so self-conscious about yourself and what might come out of your mouth behind a microphone and the reaction to it, you're that sensitive? Because that's what it comes down to. You've just gotten sensitive to the coverage, and you don't want to deal with it anymore. And so you are willingly ignoring that particular responsibility of the job, and that's what I would consider it. It is a responsibility. It is a non-negotiable. You have to communicate with your fan base, and you have to be willing to take questions. You have to meet with the media. That's part of it. If you want all the good that comes with this job, you have to deal with that part of it, because that's the reason why the highs are so high here, is because people here care. And when you go the other end of the spectrum and you tell them by your actions that you don't care about them, you're asking for trouble. And you're asking for the kind of response you're talking about, Beetle, which is the fans don't owe them anything. And then they start speaking with their wallets, and they start speaking with their attendance or lack thereof. And that started happening to a degree. It's happening in the media. How much do you guys talk about the Red Sox on a regular basis here?
Almost never.
What percentage of days did the Red Sox get more than a segment on this show?
More than a segment right now? Well, it's been months since last season. At some point last season, I'm sure we did multiple segments.
Even during the season, though.
It's tough.
It's hard.
It's tough. And they have no one to blame but themselves. Nobody to blame but themselves.
John Henry's last time speaking is still the Financial Times piece, which had to do with the PGA stuff from the middle of the summer, and that's when he told Red Sox fans that their expectations to be World Series contenders every single year are unrealistic. That's not how the sport works.
It's not that he's sending that message passively. He actively sent the message to you last year.
I'd like to begin by addressing Red Sox fans directly.
Thanks, John. He's become
about this offseason.
Howard Hughes. That's what he's become.
It's going to get very quiet very soon, because they're at $208 million right now. They're $31.9 million before the first CBT threshold. The team's still incomplete. You do not have the right-handed bat that you've talked about needing to balance everything out there. They've talked about still wanting bullpen help as well. It looks like they are now on the outside of the Alex Bregman market. So still even $18 million before what they spent last year. After all that talk, they have a chance to spend even less. Now, they'll tell you they're going to extend Garrett Crochet. That will get them up to 220, 225 in that ballpark. But compared to where you look at this team and it's not complete, not a great look for how you talked at the beginning of the offseason. You got off to a hot start with Crochet. Blew it.
We're used to challenging off seasons, but this one has been particularly challenging.
Maybe he's not well. It's crossed my mind. Maybe he's just not well. Maybe that's part of the reason he's not speaking publicly anymore. Is he losing his wits? Is he getting old? I don't know. Why would you go 5 years without sitting at the picnic table at spring training at the team you own?
I mean, he's still operating a massive company that owns multiple sports franchises.
I mean, there are a lot of people working there. I don't know. Maybe he's just lost his mind. Maybe he's not really with it anymore. Maybe he doesn't have the ability to stand in front of the microphone and sound like he's still got it all together. Maybe that's part of the hiding that's going on, which is what he's doing. He's hiding. Not speaking.
I don't think that's it because he has showed up at some of these other events and he has spoken. So it's just the act of going back and forth with reporters that he can't do? No.
I think you
don't
need to
believe
take
that.
some responsibility for this. You and Felger and Maz over there. Because it was all downhill in terms of his relationship in these Q&As after he stormed the studio and had a conversation with you guys.
Do you think the interview that he did that day in 2012 or 2011? 2011, right? Is that the year?
2011, yeah.
We had a wonderful documentary, first time, long time, NBC Sports Boston. Check your local listings. That's 13 years ago, right?
Yeah.
13 years since the storming of the castle, as we like to call it. Do you think that ultimately was bad for him?
I think that's what you want from an ownership, right?
I mean, in the documentary when we filmed it a year ago, I remember one of my points, and it made the cut. It's in there. I said, I feel like after he did this, he became very afraid to do that type of interview. But ultimately, I don't think it reflected poorly on him. He was super honest that day. He said things that, got him in trouble, but the honesty on the Carl Crawford answer, for example. Yeah, I'm sure that pissed off some people that worked for him, but I don't think it pissed off fans. I think fans heard it and was like, well, that's kind of interesting. The owner didn't want the guy, and that's kind of awkward now that the guy still plays for you,
right?
And you signed him for $142 million, and now he knows the owner didn't want him there. That's kind of interesting. That's a problem for him, not for us. I didn't have an issue with it. I'm sure Carl Crawford did.
Yeah, probably.
But I don't think that the interview itself was bad for him.
No, it's an engaged owner, by the way, driving around the city, listening to sports talk radio,
my
pissed
God.
off about you talking about the team, so he's going to go in and stick up for himself?
I don't think anything he said that day made him look bad.
That's what fans want, isn't it? They
Yes.
want somebody who is going to act like the boss.
Yes.
And who, quite frankly, doesn't care what Beetle or Zoe or
What
Mike
blame me
or
for? What if his
Tony
finer moments
or
happened that
anybody- or-
day?
because they're the boss, right? Media guys.
You're
And tell the truth.
You're misinforming the public. You're misleading. You're
Misleading,
misleading the
right.
public.
Right. So come in and set the record straight. Act like a boss. Fans appreciate that. There's no doubt.
It was awesome.
And I'm sure there are a number of people who had his back in real time who felt better about him.
That
That
was a Steve Cohen type of moment. this,
Definitely.
Where he came in to say, listen, this is how it is.
Now, there's a fine
Whether
line.
you like it or not, or whether you believe it or not, this is how it is.
There's a fine line because a lot of people don't want Jerry Jones, right? Jerry Jones is somebody who is going to act like the boss, but is also going to look incompetent.
But he's never done that. John Henry's never done that thing that Jerry Jones does, which is try and play GM.
Metal. Right.
And that was actually one of the things he said, how we don't meddle. Larry Lucchino runs the Red Sox. That's what he said that day. So I just...
Try to control the message.
So I take
Fans
that
want
point.
you to try to control the
That-
message.
That point sucks, McCone.
No, I'm saying he hasn't done it since you guys did that.
Thumbs
Yeah.
down.
Guys
for
could have been
you.
a little softer. Yeah.
He hasn't barged into a radio station since then.
I mean, that was
Learned his
13,
lesson.
Learned his
that was
lesson.
13 years ago
Yeah.
from last fall, which means he went to the picnic table like 8 more times after that. before
Another
he
8
stopped.
years of
Yeah.
back and forths
Yeah.
with the media.
Yeah, your
I
time.
know many of you, particularly our youngest fans, are disbelieving or angry or sad about it.
When was this? When was this audio from?
Mookie trade.
The Mookie trade.
Stan the Man, remember?
Did he sound great then?
No. I don't know when he sounded
5 years
great,
ago.
though. Yeah.
5 years ago. He didn't sound great. What has he spoken at? Like, notably, Milliken. What's he been at?
Really, the last close thing was the media last year at spring training. He didn't actually go full session, but he was talking to a couple people off the record. I believe Sean McAdam was one of them. No one said anything along the lines of him being, not right or off or anything like that.
I'm not going there. Because I do think it would be, it's sort of coming up with an excuse.
Well, I also don't think it's normal for an owner to disappear for 5 years.
I agree.
So, I mean,
And so
you've
until
gotta
we know
consider
more, I
everything.
think you hold his feet to the fire a little bit more and say that, like, you've got to, or make it clear that there's something going on.
Any word for the fans?
In that piece, Sean McAdam did kind of note that he's at the ballpark more than you think. So if he was kind of falling off the trail a little bit or not right, would he be at the ballpark that much overall? Probably
Well, yeah,
not.
because you can wheel him in and sit him there and say, here's a popcorn, John. Watch the game. Here you go. You need a soda? We'll get that for
Come
you,
on.
too.
Any word for the fans, please?
Have you ever known an old person, Billiken? Just because they're
Way
not...
too many,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Okay, all right, then. You know, they may not be totally with it, but they're still able to get around and go do things. May not be as sharp as they once were. The words may not come as easily as they once did, but they're still capable of leading a life that's enjoyable. You know? Jeez. I gotta get a B12 shot.
Don't give him the excuse. That's all I say.
I'm not giving him an excuse.
Giving
I'm
him
just trying
an
to figure it
excuse.
out, man.
Mr. Henry, we couldn't hear you earlier.
The guy has fallen off the map. And when people disappear like that, you start saying, well, what could it be if it's not just the fact that he's flipping the middle finger to the fans? Is something else going on?
Obviously,
Other than him just being that rude?
Is there anything you would like to say? We can't hear you.
Everyone ages differently. He's 75. Pete Carroll, I think he's going to be 1 month before his 74th birthday when he starts coaching for the Raiders.
And he's subdued. Did you hear him? We just played it this morning.
He's competent enough.
But he's
Competent.
totally willing and able to go back and forth with a couple of media slappies.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. If you like that clip, check out more videos from Zolak and Bertrand here. For more Red Sox analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.